Welcome to the South Asian Environment Dialogue. On behalf of the Climate Dialogue and the Climate TV channel Canada and the Plurals India, I welcome you all to this very important episode, which we name Unbreathable Cities, where we are leading to. All of you know that recently the US-based Health Effects Institute has come up with a report, Air Quality and Health, where they have covered about 7,000 global cities, more than 7,000 to be precise. And in that report, I believe this is the first of its kind report on the cities. Before they had the report on regions and countries. The report is showing that in PM 2.5, the particulate matter 2.5, Delhi leads the pack globally, followed by Kolkata, and then Dhaka is in 6th position, and Dhaka is in 5th position, and then Karachi, I think, is in 8th position. So Asian cities dominate the top 10 in PM 2.5. Not really in NO2. It's interesting that NO2, you're finding cities like Singapore or Shanghai, Beijing in the top part. So we are going to discuss the entire issue and how the cities should progress, what the governments are doing, what the society is doing, how the society is reacting to it. And I have a great panel to discuss the whole agenda with me. I have my very good friend Anumita Chowdhury from Center for Science and Environment, India, from the city of Delhi in India. Welcome, Anumita, to the show. It's great to get you back. No air pollution discussion can be complete without you. So it's always a pleasure and privilege to host you. I have with me Professor Kamruzzaman Majumder. Professor Majumder is from Stamford University, Dhaka, Bangladesh, working a lot on the air and noise pollution, if I'm right, in Bangladesh. And we really need to know what's happening in Bangladesh, because very interestingly, the Bangladesh death rate has increased highest among all the Asian cities. We'll discuss that briefly. I have with me my very good friend, Dr. Imran Khalid from WWF Pakistan, working on the governance. Imran is a very, very strong voice in Pakistan on a range of environmental issues and climate issues. And I have with me Professor Abhijit Chatterjee from Bose Institute, a very, very eminent and reputed institute from Kolkata, India. Professor Chatterjee is working a long, long time on the air pollution issues and a very, very core researcher. So with this a very interesting and mixed panel, let us start with Anumita. Anumita, how you see this report? It's not a news that South Asian cities are kind of having a lot of issues with particulate matter, but this is the first time the cities are listed. We had a feeling that Delhi is doing well, but Delhi, despite everything, is still topping the list. So how do you see this?
So there are several messages in this report, and that's something we should try and understand. Yes, you're absolutely right, Jayanta, that it is very predictable now to have the South Asian cities listed as the top 10 polluted cities in the world, as particulate pollution. Now, this time, the report has focused on the exposure of urban population more. So they have taken a little bit more about 7,000 cities, and where they have compared their exposures and disease burden. And what is the message here is that by 2050, about 65% of the global population is going to be urban. And if cities are polluted, then that means you are increasing the exposure level for population. And that's also a message for us in South Asia, which is also urbanizing very rapidly. But what is very interesting is that if you look at the top 10, and you have, as I said, that Dhaka, the Delhi, Dhaka, Karachi, and all, including Beijing, is part of the top 10. Yes, but what is important here is that the report itself is saying that this is based on the data for cities that we have, that many cities do not even have the data because they are not even getting monitored. And there's a bigger lesson there for us in India, that so we have seen that in this list, you have the mega cities like Delhi and Kolkata as the most polluted. But we know internally that today the smaller cities are more polluted than Kolkata and Delhi. And that is a big crisis in the region. But the other story that is very strong in this is that when you're looking at the disease burden, And in that, Beijing still tops.
Yes.
The question that you asked, that why Delhi, even after doing so much, is still the top for the particulate exposure. But Beijing also has done a lot. What Beijing has done is quite outstanding. And they have actually reduced their particulate pollution by 40% over a period of time. But even after that, you are seeing that for disease burden, Beijing is at the top. And the reason that they're giving is that their disease rates, their baseline disease rates, and their growing and aging population, which is responsible for this. So understand that even for our cities, where we also have a very large population, aging population now, so Delhi also has reduced pollution by about 25%. But even after that reduction, it is still the most polluted. And we know that Delhi still has to reduce its particulate pollution by yet another 60% to be able to
come to the level.
Standards, right? And the final message from this report is also very interesting, as you said, that for particulate pollution, the South Asian peers that we all are, we are at the top. But when it's NO2, which is more combustion related, right? And this is higher in more developed cities. So that's Shanghai, Singapore. And that is the lesson for us, because we are also at that cusp of developing and motorizing. And I think
that's a very important point, Anumita. We need to kind of deliberate on that separately, why NO2 is increasing and what we should learn from that. But let's first look around how the PM 2.5, the particulate is happening around the South Asian cities. Professor Chatterjee, because we are in India still now, what about Calcutta? Calcutta, there's a general feeling that Calcutta has been doing well and all that, but Kolkata is still having, if I'm not wrong, 84 microgram during the last report, which is more than double of the national standard and enormously higher. That's a kind of impossible figure with respect to WHO. But let's take even the national standard, we are more than double. So what happening in Kolkata?
Mr. Basu, first of all, good evening. As a hardcore researcher on air pollution and atmospheric science as a whole, so my concern has always been on the selection of sites, selection of monitoring sites, which is very important and which plays the main role, key role for any air pollution studies. So I was trying to find out, Mr. Basu, if you have some knowledge, then you can share with me. I didn't find what are the monitoring sites have been chosen for Kolkata. Okay. Because I always.
You mentioned the report. I mentioned the report.
I mean the report.
If I'm not wrong, Anumita can correct me. The figure that taking the national average, the data that is officially being taken as a national value, they're taking it. Anumita, am I right? This 84 or 110.
Normally, what they do is to take to the ground level monitoring data, and they also match it with the satellite. So at least with the Delhi data, it is quite consistent with what we have seen.
I think 84 is also
no, Mr. Basu. Anyway. What I was trying to say that for the ground-based measurement, what were the sites, monitoring sites that was chosen by the group?
Right.
Was it in nearby the US Consulate General or something?
Right.
Or I didn't know. I didn't find out. Okay. So because Mr. Basu, we know that yes.
This is an interesting question because I am going to interview Pallavi Pant, who did the main research soon. Having a one-on-one interview with her, so I'll be raising this question.
Because so for example, since last 2 months, I was just for the curiosity and for one of my PhD scholars project. So I was just sampling aerosols, for example, PM 2.5, parallelly within the 100-meter distance in near our campus, in Bose Institute campus. One is absolutely, the 4 sides open. Okay, the site is having a 4 sides open where the free air passes are there, no hindrance, no blockage is there, and another site was having some hindrance from one or two
Always there are
sides. Okay,
supposed to be there.
so
There will be deviation when you are changing.
That's what I was trying to say. Was the site was quite biased to some specific sources or not? Okay, so I was
I get your point. So you feel that Kolkata's air quality is better than being projected? Let me ask you a very straight question.
No,
are you saying that
really,
Kolkata's air quality is better than what is being projected?
Not really, but I was just trying to find out the methodology, the number of samples.
That's I think another very important issue.
Yeah.
But very quickly, a very quick supplement question. What, according to you, is the main cause of air pollution in Kolkata right now?
To me?
Yes, according to your study.
That I have been repeatedly saying since last 1 year. Nowadays, at the current scenario, solid waste burning and the solid fuel burning at the most
is the main cause.
Low-hanging fruit. If you want to mitigate PM
2.5
and the vehicle-driven road dust.
So vehicle and solid waste, fine. Let's see what's happening in other cities. Professor Majumder, you are working a lot in Dhaka and issues. Very quickly, Dhaka is one of the economically growing city and also the pollution-wise growing city in South Asia. What's the story in Dhaka?
Thank you. Actually, as you mentioned that we are in a development stage for like a number of mega project is running here in Dhaka, BRT, metro rail and all other things. And unlike Calcutta, for Dhaka actually, the main source of air pollution is that construction activity. It was from the brick kilns in the last few in last decade, but nowadays brick fields are beaten by the construction activity. Around 2,000 brick fields was surrounded by this Dhaka, and now because of Department of Environment initiation, those brick fields, especially the illegal brick kilns and brick fields, they're reduced. Their number has been reduced. But the construction activities that are going on, they are not following the construction rule for Dhaka city. So there's huge traffic jam that are induced from the construction barrier. And so though the traffic jam is contributing, but those are actually again deriving from the construction barrier. So you can say,
so, do you have any, Professor Majumder, any data in Dhaka? There is any apportionment study that how much being contributes by your construction, how much by transport? Any specific data on that?
Unfortunately, there is no systematic study for saying a conclusion, but some different small studies giving some idea how actually this construction activity is contributing. Like in some of our study, revealed that the places where construction activity is going on, the pollution is more. And when
so there's a correlation.
Construction activity is over, then pollution goes
down. So construction is a major cause. I'll come back to you. Let me go to my good friend, Dr. Khalid. And I'm going to as per the pollution level. I started with Anumita with the highest pollution, then to Kolkata, the number 2, then Dhaka in that list, and now Imran to you. I find that Karachi is having about 64 microgram. That is the figure being shown. So how bad is the situation in Karachi, and is it going back to worse, or is it being improved? What's your experience?
I think I'll just echo Anumitaji's comment that the situation in any one city in South Asia is a reflection of what is happening in urban areas across the region. Right. So I was surprised not to see Lahore there, for example. Lahore is very much in the news, especially during winter when the smog season comes around. And the issues that we're facing are pretty much similar across the country. Let's start with source apportionment studies. Source apportionment studies have been done. They've been done by some university researchers, but they're here and there. There hasn't been a concerted effort by the government to undertake them in recent years, and that needs to be done. But if you were to conduct a apportionment study, you would find that the source of air pollution in Pakistani cities emanates from vehicles. We've been using very poor quality petrol product, very poor quality diesel fuel. We're trying to change that and bring in Euro 5, for example, but only a small portion of that kind of fuel is coming in. And that's only been decided over the past year or so. So let's see how that will help us. Open burning is a major problem. So that is solid waste management. A lot of solid waste it's either dumped into open areas, it's dumped into waterways, and if it's out in the open, then it's set on fire by those municipalities which do not have a landfill or they can't dispose of it properly.
Right.
There are brick kilns, as has been alluded to earlier. So brick kilns play a major role here. When it comes to Karachi, because it is a coastal city, sea spray, that also contributes to it, to the PM 2.5. And so these are all these factors. And I think if you were to take any particular city in Pakistan, you would find a mix of these. We just don't know what's more or not, what's higher and what's lower, because we need to do more apportionment studies.
To basically know what exactly happening. Anumita, it's very interesting if you hear Professor Chatterjee, Professor Majumder, Dr. Khalid, you also mentioned a bit. The scenario is more or less similar. There may be some reason being more dominant in some cities, some reason maybe less dominant, but generally the contribution from vehicles, from construction, from open burning, they seem to dominate the whole show. Now, Professor Chatterjee mentioned one thing during his kind of saying that there's a low-hanging fruit. So do you feel, Anumita, it's a kind of a governance failure? Because we have been pumping in huge amount of money. I was looking at the National Clean Air Program of India. It was 6,000 plus crore. One of the cities getting 190, 200 crores per year. So what do you feel? It's a governance failure? It's a nexus between politics or vested interest group? Or is it actually, you can't do anything about it? What's your take on that?
So, Jayanta, let's look at it from two different perspectives.
Right.
One, the positive perspective that for the first time in the history of air pollution narrative in this country, you have a national program and you have committed funds. So in the last 3 years, the amount of funding that has been infused, even though we still say it's not enough, but the fact that 4,400 crores sanctioned to the ULBs in the country to control air pollution, it's kind of the step forward. So now we know that the processes have been set. So under NCAP, the cities are required to prepare their micro-action plan in which they have to actually specify that what will be the key indicators of their action, target, how much fund has been allocated, how much fund utilized, and what has not been done. Now, and CPCB has given them 258 indicators, which is cross-sectoral for each sector, on which each ULB is supposed to track their progress. Now, if the ULBs and other departments are actually able to show progress on 258 indicators, right? And we are certainly on our way to solving the problem. But somewhere there is a disconnect. And that's what we really need to understand. So our experience, because we are now engaging with the state governments, what we are finding is that yes, funds have arrived, but there's a big problem with understanding the scope of the action that adds up as clean air action. And so there are several things. One, that in India, because we do not have enough data on PM 2.5, the focus is on PM 10. As a result, it has diverted a lot of attention towards just dust control. So they are just sweeping road, they are sprinkling water. And that has, in fact, when we had analyzed that how the cities are spending their money, but that's a little dated data, till December 2021, we found that 70% of the money spent by 33 cities for which we had analyzed had spent on only road building and road widening. right? So which means that because they did not have a clear idea and a criteria how to spend the money, so they were just spending it on business as usual. Now that has to change, because, and when we are going from, so you really need a lot more clarity now that first understanding these sources of pollution that everyone has outlined here: industry, power plant, vehicles, waste burning, construction. But then what you do in each sector? Has a city quantified the waste generated? How much they have to spend for material recovery, for processing, for segregation, for remediation of the legacy waste? How do you deal with construction and demolition waste, and what kind of infrastructure you require in a city of Kolkata, for instance? What do you do with vehicles? So if we say public transport, what does that mean? They only understand buying buses is public transport, which is not, right? Or doing massive electrification, dealing with old vehicles, having scrappage infrastructure. So the devil is in the detail, which is missing in the planning. And that's where we need the interventions to
in fact, I'll take that question to others as well, to Imran and Kamruzzaman as well. That it seems, it's my experience from the city I am part of, Kolkata, and also from various Indian cities, that as Anumita pointed out, many of the city governments tend to kind of take action on the issues which are of less politically sensitive. Like you sprinkle water on the roads, you do some road building. So not really taking a hard action on the issues like scrapping of old vehicles or likewise. So it seems that politics is playing a role in not being pollution control. So the NCAP needs to, I think, identify. When you were saying that 258 or 298 indicators, I was asking some senior officials of Kolkata Municipal Corporation. They just need to tick. So they find out few of the parameters which are convenient. So it's a more, I would call, a convenient pollution action rather than the actual pollution action. So, Professor Chatterjee, you are part of KMC's expert committee, I know. I think you also have given a lot of suggestions. I know that all the suggestions are not by first made, but how you look at it, this NCAP and this huge funding, Kolkata has got about 540 crores, near about 540 crores in 3 years, couldn't use more than 50%, still being one of the global topper. How you see it?
Yes, Mr. Basu, I think Anumita has pointed out rightly that yes, NCAP has a positive side, that this is the first time in the history that some national program, some national mission has been built up for air pollution mitigation. But that's the point. I mean, I think the most, the serious problem where lies the serious problem is in the manpower. The deficiency in manpower in the urban local bodies, because urban local bodies are the bodies which are actually working on the ground. Okay, and I mean the manpower is same, and some extra load like NCAP are being given to them. So this is some kind of extra burden to them. They are doing more of paperwork than the real action plan, or that's what you have mentioned. Okay, for example, I have talked to KMC officials and also West Bengal Pollution Control Board. So under the umbrella of NCAP, what they are doing, they are focusing on all the pollution sectors like industries, vehicles, dust, solid waste or solid fuel burning. But I always have I've been telling them that just focus on some 3 or 4 specific sources which are actually polluting Kolkata's atmosphere, actually enhancing the PM 2.5 load at the current scenario, like solid waste burning, solid fuel burning, and vehicle-driven road dust. Okay, so but they are actually focusing as a whole. They are driving with all the people, all the manpower for controlling all the sources at a time. So that's the problem. That's the problem.
That's where the problem is.
Like they are trying to electrifying the vehicles. They are trying to launch the electric vehicles. But who will have the courage to buy the electric vehicle if you have not sufficiently, you do not have some power charging station or the electric vehicle charging station or charging point on road? That's the problem.
No, I get your point. In fact, I really agree with both of you that capacity development in the ULB should be an important, because I was speaking to the municipal officers, they seem clueless. they have no idea what PM10 and PM 2.5, why they are different, what they contribute, from where they come from. They're completely clueless. So it's really a very important point being raised by Anumita and then was a Chatterjee that they need a lot of handholding and technical support. Let me know how, Imran, how is happening in Pakistan. What is the level? We have heard what the governance is happening in India. What is the Pakistan scenario? What is the structure of pollution control? Is it very centrally done through a pollution control board, or your, like India, your ULBs also being part of it? What's the structure out there and how they're doing?
Yeah, so Pakistan set up its Environmental Protection Act in 1997. Prior to that, we had Environmental Protection Ordinance dating back to 1983, but it was never an act because there was a dictatorship at that time. So once the parliament came in, it eventually turned into an act. So, but we've had an environmental law for quite a number of decades. After the act came into being in 1997, we developed provincial environmental, well, prior to that, we developed the environmental protection agencies across the various provinces as well. We developed, after the 97 Environmental Protection Act, we developed National Environmental Protection, National Environmental Quality Standards. So that was something that was led by the federal government. In 2010, we had the 18th Amendment. This is when devolution happened and the responsibility for environment as a subject went to the provinces. And then so now it's up to the provinces to take up this mantle. Prior to 2010, the federal government was working on a national clean air plan and had developed.
But now is it all about central government or your state?
But now it's all with it's not all with the provinces or the states. It's not. So federal government does not have any say in terms of what the provinces are doing.
So the city governments also play a very important role.
Yeah, so it's the provincial governments, and the provincial environmental protection agencies and departments are responsible for it. They're responsible for shutting down industry. They're responsible for going after waste burning, but they don't do that. And one of the reasons is that there is a huge lack of capacity when it comes to these authorities and agencies. Okay. And then the second, so that's so capacity. We're talking about lack of human resources, and then capacity in terms of having the technical know-how. So there's a lack of technical know-how, and so once you don't know what you're trying to do, as Anumita ji said, then how are you going to resolve it?
Okay, and so similar. I think it's such a pattern being set throughout the state. Professor Majumder, the same experience. How are your cities? How much your cities involved in the first place, and if they're involved, how they're doing?
Yes, actually, the city.
For example, Dhaka has how many municipalities? Dhaka has 2 or 3.
We have two municipalities.
Two municipalities. We always fine. Yes. So Dhaka, what they're doing?
Dhaka South and Dhaka North. Previously, both was together, but for last 6 years, a couple of years, it is divided into 2. But situation remained the same in terms of air pollution. We cannot manage to control our air pollution, though government in the top from the top of the government always saying that they are giving the top priority to control this pollution, but in the implementation level we cannot see that commitment. And in most cases things are like handling the development is getting more priority, and this environment actually get more negligence from the development partners. And the mega project are getting all the priorities, even not only the air pollution, but also the other compliance issue are not maintaining. And you might saw in the news that just last week, there was a huge accident in the mega project and 6 people actually died from that accident. So half of the roads are actually blocked because of those mega projects in Dhaka.
That's creating the problem.
Yes.
So your city governments are not really that involved in cutting pollution. They are not. They have no direct role like the Indian counterparts are having.
Unfortunately, the mayor of the city, he was not actually interrupting like this activity. But after the incident, he came into the scene and saying that now onward he will be monitoring this pollution, health compliance, and all other things.
No system in place at the So I think that's very interesting how the ULBs are doing. India may be a bit of a pushing it with the in camp, but I think generally the situation is same. Anumita, before we talk about the bit of the transboundary thing and the airshed thing, one point you were raising, I think very important point I really need to know about it, is that the so-called cities like Singapore or Shanghai, known for their traffic control, known for the other factors, how come that they are also being quite high in NO2, and also a bit of I was looking at 12, I think Singapore 12, Shanghai 14, so likewise in PM 2.5. So what the lessons Indian cities should learn from them?
This is the pollution ladder that
Right.
all countries are climbing one by one. And in that pollution ladder, what happens? That those who are still developing, poor countries, they are deep in particulate pollution because of their poor combustion technologies, because we are not developed to have the right technologies with us. So a lot of problem with incomplete combustion, and of course the dust problem that we have in our regions. And it has been seen globally that as countries, they develop and they control their particulate pollution, the gaseous pollution then becomes more important than particulate pollution. We have seen this in US, we have seen this in Europe. So where they are now battling NO2 and ozone problem. And it's the same thing what is appearing now in this ranking. So Singapore, yes, for small cities, even though they have done a lot to control, but still their industry, their motorized, whatever the vehicle intensity that they have. But Shanghai, it just brings out that how much we have to stay ahead of the pollution curve because we are also continuously developing and motorizing. Even after taking strong action, we still have to do significantly more to be able to control the problem. So NO2 and ozone are now the emerging problems even in India. And that is the problem of the future. That's the reason why right away, when we are working on our pollution control, it should be a multi-pollutant approach, not that we deal with particulate today and we'll deal with the ozone tomorrow. It should not be like that. So multi-sectoral and multi-pollutant, that's what we require to be able to prevent this kind of scenario.
And multi-pollutant, by multi-pollutant, you mentioned, you refer PM 2.5, you mentioned NO2, you mentioned ozone.
And mainly the gaseous pollution. And they come, and that means that the combustion sources like vehicles, industry, power plants, they become more important. And you should also know that the gases, once they come out in the air, like NO2, SO2, they also form secondary particulates and add to the particulate load. So combustion sources will really have to be the target.
Okay, I think absolutely fascinating, and I think really for the Indian cities, a lot of learning to be had from this what is happening in Singapore. Nobody expected Singapore to lead top.
Singapore has an added problem, Jayanta, not NO2, but in case of that, they are also vulnerable to huge forest fires that happen in Indonesia.
Yes, right.
So that also raises their pollution levels.
That's adding. And we are also having forest fire in the northern part of our country, so also contributing to the whole gamut of problem. Let me be very quick to the last round of questions on the transboundary position. Let me start with the coupling of Professor Chatterjee and then Professor Majumder. Professor Chatterjee, you know better that in West Bengal, it's being said that a lot of pollution is coming from Bangladesh. A lot of pollution is coming from PM 2.5. If I'm not wrong, about 21% of the PM 2.5 coming from Bangladesh. And I'm sure that Professor Majumder has heard a lot of allegations in Bangladesh scientists that a lot of pollution going from India to Bangladesh. I'll take the final comment from Anumita, but what's the situation? It's like the tiger case. When tigers are counted in India, they get less tigers and say all the tigers in Bangladesh. And then Bangladesh get less tigers, they said all in India. So what's happening? Professor Chatterjee, what's your study said on a serious note? What about this transboundary pollution scenario? Very quickly, we are running out of time. Very quick.
Yeah, Mr. Basu, this is absolutely season dependent. Okay. Absolutely season dependent. And I think the government of India and government of Bangladesh should work together, because whatever the sources are not different, right, Mr. Basu? Whatever is the combustion source or whatever, I mean, any other sources, fossil fuel or biomass burning or forest fire, or in a large scale sources, that has to be stopped. So if it is coming from Bangladesh to India, or it is coming from India to Bangladesh, I think government of both the governments, they should work together, at least for mitigating the air pollutions or upgrading the air pollution scenario at the eastern part of India and East Asia.
Okay,
So,
Professor Majumder, would you like to add anything? Professor Chatterjee, are you trying to add anything? It's okay. So, Professor Majumder.
Yes, as Mr. Banerjee just said, I agreed with him because actually we don't have very strong scientific evidence in our hand to come with a conclusion how much air pollution or pollutant is coming from India or they are going from Bangladesh again back. As he mentioned, it is a season dependent. We also know during the monsoon some pollutant is coming from Indian or even from the Kathmandu or Nepal side towards Bangladesh. Again, in the other season from Bangladesh, some pollution is going back to India. So, but we need actually for Bangladesh, we need to set up a air quality monitoring equipments to determine the severity and source of the pollution that are coming from India. Again, we need to work together, like both the country, we need to work together to find out a solution again.
So basically, we do not have any concrete data to conclude that who is contributing how much in this context. Imran, another package is North India and you're part of Pakistan. So again, the same kind of thing. And again, the allegation, counter allegation. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's been happening for quite some time. I think we've discussed this in one of your previous shows as well. And I keep saying that if we start to take care of our own problems, then we won't have to come up with this, these such kind of accusations. I mean, because this is just I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it's beyond comprehension that given the amount of data that we have and research is working on, and then this is produced in our own countries. Some individuals think that it's easier to blame the other, and nobody's going to bat an eye. That's not the case. I'll add to this by saying that in '98, we came up with the Mali Declaration on air pollution in South Asia, and then it talks about setting up a baseline data. It talks about setting up capacity, information sharing and moving forward. And so I don't think much has been done since then. I think we need to, build on that, revamp that, bring it out into the open and then build on it. Because now we have the benefit of the internet and digital technology that we did not earlier. Our understanding in terms of how air pollution is affecting us is much better, and so on and so forth. So let's utilize.
So we need collaborative work. We need joint work to really find out based on newer technologies what's happening there, and trying to find a solution together rather than kind of finger point each other. I think that is definitely the case. Thank you, Imran. So Anumita, you have been all over talking about this airshed management, and this airshed management is all about the transboundary pollution management. You have heard the Bangladesh, West Bengal scenario. Then Imran was talking about the Pakistan scenario. What's your take on that? We do not have any Mali Declaration is there, but do we have really any movement from government to government, institutional? I'm not talking about individual researchers working together, but institutional collaboration.
So, first point, that at the regional level, there is a huge scope and opportunity to utilize some of these platforms like Mali Declaration, SARC, so that all South Asian governments can participate first to build the scientific knowledge on a collaborative basis, generate evidence, understand that what is the regional impact, what are the, the common issues, and also strengthen the knowledge that should support mitigation strategy. So I think the knowledge building, awareness building will have to be the focus of intergovernmental action in the region. And for that, the institutional cooperation at the scientific level, at the governmental level, has a huge scope. But I would also add to that if we are looking for a framework for regional air quality management, then we also have to internalize that within our own country. If
Absolutely.
in India, we have not been able to figure out that how that West Bengal, Bihar, UP, and the Indo-Gangetic Plain states will cooperate, how the state council can be created for an integrated approach for a regional mitigation. I think that localization of regional action is also hugely important so that we know what kind of template we need to create for governance structure for regional management of air quality. So at the superstructure level, at the intergovernmental, at the
boundary level,
you need that scientific cooperation strategy right now. And within the country, we also need to know how to go beyond the city to be able to have a much larger airshed management approach and create the right governance framework for this so that implementation can be done at a regional scale, not at a small, tiny local scale that cannot make any impact.
Great. We have come to the end. Just a quick last question, Anumita, that do you feel that NCAP, now NCAP, I'm sure that NCAP 2 will be there because this NCAP is going to round up by 2024. So there'll be another NCAP or improved NCAP or whatever you call it. So should that, the scope of this federal interaction, federal facilitative interaction with the cities. Now the cities are all alone. Even the Kolkata, then Asansol, even they don't talk to each other generally on this action. So do you feel there should be scope being created, interaction between the states and cities so that combative counter plan can be prepared together?
Absolutely. And the positive sign of that is that already officially, NCAP has taken on board the whole idea of regional action. And one of the manifestation of that is where now the state governments have been asked to prepare their state level plan. But what is more needed is that we still do not know how the interstate cooperation will have to be worked out. And how do you, in fact, we say that AIR Act actually allows the government to declare a region as a critically polluted area for governance. But they apply that very narrowly to the industrial estate.
Industrials.
Not to the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So we do have the legal opportunity as well, but we now have to focus very clearly on how that interstate agreement management, how do you establish responsibility of the upwind polluter and the downwind polluter? How do you have a good neighbor policy, which other countries have done? So we have to make those mandate clear to the state governments now.
Absolutely. I think great discussion. Thank you, Anumita, for the final comment, and really thankful to all of you, Professor Chatterjee, Professor Majumder, and Dr. Khalid, for the kind of insight that you have brought on the table. And I think finally what all of you have mentioned, and Anumita has so aptly summed up, that now we need both within the intra-country and inter-country collaboration. Just like for rivers, India and Pakistan, India and Bangladesh have to collaborate whether they want to or not. Still on air, I think we are late on the bus, but we need to catch up the bus, and we need to push on the agenda of collaborative environmental monitoring and environmental action. Especially so, nowadays, the researchers are saying that air pollution and climate change are often being interlaced with each other. With 2025 being declared as the year when the climate change action should start at the latest. So I think the air pollution control also needs to link up with that pace. With that note, and thanks to all of you, we wind up today, another day, another time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
ফোক ফেস্ট হচ্ছে, বইমেলা হচ্ছে, যে এবং দুটো মেলাই আপনি উদ্বোধন করেছেন। আপনি বলবেন এই যে এই প্রবাসে বাঙালি কৃষ্টি সংস্কৃতির এই অগ্রযাত্রা নিয়ে।
হ্যাঁ, এই গরমে না একটা উৎসব লেগে গেছে টরন্টোতে। কিছুদিন আগে টরন্টো ফিল্ম ফোরাম কি করেছে, মাল্টিকালচারাল ফিল্ম ফেস্টিভ্যাল করবে। অসাধারণ একটা ফেস্টিভ্যাল করলো। এই প্রায় একই সময় চলছিল আপনার জ্যাজ ফেস্টিভ্যাল, এই কিছুদিনের মধ্যে হবে রক ফেস্টিভ্যাল, আজকে হচ্ছে ফোক ফেস্টিভ্যাল স্কারবোরোতে। কী যে ভালো লাগছে। আর বাঙালি কমিউনিটির যদি কথা বলেন, সত্যি আপনারা এখন শুনে খুশি হবেন, প্রত্যেকটি অর্গানাইজার সংগঠক বাঙালি। কী যে ভালো লাগছে এই কথাটা বলতে। আজকে আমি গামছা হাতে করে নিয়ে আসছি, আমি গামছা কখনো পরি না, পাগড়ি পরে তারপর উদ্বোধন করলাম এটা। কারণ ফোক ফেস্টিভ্যাল আমাদের মাঝি, আমাদের জেলে, আমাদের কৃষক ঘাম মোছে, টিস্যু পেপার নাই তো, এটা দিয়ে ঘাম মোছে, এটা দিয়ে গোসল করে, গা ভিজে গরম লাগলে এটা দিয়ে এরকম করে মোছে। আজকে সত্যি ভালো লাগে বাঙালির এই এত যাত্রা। এটি সম্ভব হয়েছে 1971 আমাদের ভাষা আন্দোলন, যেখানে একটা অসাম্প্রদায়িক গণতান্ত্রিক মূল্যবোধের জন্ম হয়েছিল, এবং সেটাকেই বাংলাদেশে কতটা পারছে আমি এটা বলতে পারছি না, কিন্তু প্রবাসে যে বাঙালিরা আছে প্রত্যেকে বুকের মধ্যে বাংলাদেশের মানচিত্র নিয়ে থাকে, তারা বাংলাদেশকে এইভাবে উপস্থিত করে।
সেই জন্য তারা একই সাথে ফোক ফেস্ট করে, একই সাথে বইমেলা করে,
ফিল্ড ফোর ফেস্টিভ্যাল করে। বইমেলাতে আমার কী যে ভালো লেগেছিল, সেখানে জিন্না চৌধুরী আসছে চট্টগ্রাম থেকে, সেখানে সিরাজুল মুনির আসছে, তারপরে আমাদের তাজুল ইমাম নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে আসছে, এবং আমি সত্যি খুব অভিভূত হয়েছি। সুকন্যা, রাজকীয় সুকন্যা যে পারফর্ম করবো, পুরো উপমহাদেশকে, শুধু বাংলাদেশকে না, পুরো উপমহাদেশকে সামনে নিয়ে আসছে আজকে। কি যে আমি এই